if you know that person is struggling with communication in their marriage and you have a problem in communication in yours, they are not the people that you go ask the question of how do you make communication work. And they're probably, depending upon the situation they're in, that's probably going to cause damage rather than repair to your relationship. Good evening and welcome back to another live episode of the Purpose and Powerful podcast. I'm Erica Lester, your host, along with my co-hosts.
Jubril.
Tonight we're talking about marriage reality. The honeymoon is over. The guests have enjoyed, you have enjoyed the wedding. It was phenomenal. It's the day you waited for. You had all the groomsmen, the bridesmaids, the cake you wanted. You had the colors and the family join you. Everyone was so excited. The bride was beautiful. The groom was handsome. You've gone off to the honeymoon that you always desired. Y'all had an amazing trip. You're back in your joint home. Your bags are unpacked. Life is life and things are real. Everybody's told you all the congratulations. You've opened up all the guest gifts. You've written all your thank you letters. You've sent them out. And that first argument comes into play. So now welcome to reality. That's where the reality sets in, because we focus so much in society about getting engaged, getting married, having the big wedding ceremony destination, or locally, who are we going to invite on the guest list? All those amazing, wonderful things. But no one sat you down and said, this is what married life is like. So I believe all of our guests tonight, with the exception of myself, I was formerly married, but most of our guests tonight are married. So my question in general I'll start with my esteemed host is, what has been the biggest surprise about marriage that you didn't anticipate during your engagement?
What's the biggest thing? Say it again, because this.
What has been the biggest surprise about marriage that you didn't anticipate during your engagement? Or during your dating phase? Like now that you're married for a while, what would you say has been that surprise thing that you never considered that has come up?
I don't know if it's the biggest thing, but the first thing that comes off mind is coordinating our schedules, making sure our schedules come together. And I feel that when you're dating, it's easy to make those schedules come together. You do a little bit more compromising. It's easier. You don't see each other as much, so you want to kind of work with each other. But now you're talking about on a forever lifetime of blending schedules, it's different. So I think that's what I took for granted. I mean, and when I say schedules, I'm talking about even when to eat or what to eat. Because it's one thing if you only got to do it one time, you feel like you got to do it one time to compromise on a certain type of meal or going to a certain place. But when you realize that's something you're going to have to do almost every day, or at least 2 or 3 times a week, because you're married, that's I'd say the biggest thing. So again, it all goes back to the scheduling, and even trips, going different places. That schedule is huge, biggest surprise.
Absolutely, I totally agree. So, Miss, you've been married for 29 years. What do you believe has been the most common challenge you think that marriages face after the honeymoon phase is over? Like helping the couples prepare for navigating the challenge. What do you believe is the most common challenge that they might face?
The most common challenge is marriage itself. And I say that because many times we have a whole expectation of what marriage is. And many times we think that, the death do we part. There's a whole thing of ownership. There's a whole thing of you do what I say, I say what you do. things that have happened inside of your dating now because you're married, all of that stuff changed. There are new rules, and really there's not. But the challenge becomes there's a new set of commitments, and those commitments must be honored by all. And so that's why I just said marriage in general, because the term is many times not explained the time that they're dating, because everybody's looking at marriage from different perspectives. They're looking at it from their lens, from what their own world view of what marriage is. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So just taking a step back, I know that at least I know that Jubril and I both have been divorced before. So I'll start, and if Jubril, you'll give an answer to this as well, is looking back, what do you think were the key factors that led to the end of your marriage? Specifically, if you had to pick one factor, what was it, and how have you used that? How have you improved upon that in your current marriage that you have now? Like the lesson learned. So for me, reflecting back and then also knowing what I've learned from that going forward into a possible marriage in the future, I would say I'll piggyback off of what Jubril said about the aligning schedules and the eating times and the different things. There's a quote that Dr. Ed Young, who is a prominent minister, I believe he's in Texas, said that what happens is people come to the altar to alter. So seemingly you accept, where that person is that you've decided to embark upon this journey with, in relationship, in engagement, in marriage as well. And all of a sudden is, I want to change this, I want to change that, or, your schedule was your schedule, your life was your life. You're trying to blend that joint life together to see how you fit. And I think what does not happen most of the time is trying to find that balance before the marriage actually takes place. So what that looked like for me in my previous marriage was I was already in accounting, the field. So before my husband and I even got married, I was already in an internship. This is what my schedule will look like when I go full time after my graduation, because I was in my senior year. This is how many hours I'm going to have to work. These are going to be my new responsibilities. So where I'm spending all these hours going back and forth to school, they will now become my permanent work hours expectation. So yes, I'm ambitious where I want to climb the corporate ladder in terms of reaching all my potential, but not in the point where I don't have in mind that my family has to come along for the ride. So here we are, we're in the marriage, I'm working all these hours and he's working all these hours. He has a different position, but he has different hours. So he has a key position in his job, but he has more flexibility. So he was wanting me to be home supporting all this stuff about 5:30. Now I'm actually getting off at 5. I have a 45-minute commute. So there's not a way possible for me to be in the location where he wants me to be at 5:30, right? Not possible. So he gets off at 2:30, 3 o'clock. He has his whole day, workout, friendships, all this other stuff. 9 o'clock, he's like, all right, babe, I'm going to bed. I'm like, wait, what? Okay, you come to bed too. Well, I'm sorry, I just got home at 7 o'clock. I just made some dinner, got to do a shower, got to do all these other things that were still part of my day. I know I can't go to bed at 9 p.m. It's just not possible. I might not have even, depending on my day, not even got home at 8. So I think I would say even going into my future marriage situation, which, not dating right now either right now, right? But one of the things that I try to always strive for being a business owner right now is saying one day I'm going to be a wife, one day I'm going to be a mother, and keeping in mind that, I changed our corporate holiday structure. I changed our summer work schedule. I changed a lot of these things with in mind that I would be off, they would be off and there would be no communication that would be necessary in the office. So I think for me, the thing to learn would be, I want you to respect my boundaries, but I'm going to do the benefit of making sure my boundaries align with it not being something we have to discuss about in the future. So saying all of that, our co-host, Dr. Jubril, what has been the one thing that your takeaway from your prior marriage that you like, you're the winner, you're the boss of right now, you got it in this one?
Well, it's all going back to that schedule. I mean, even right now, I'm at a function for my wife's mom, and some little kids popped in. So I mean, when I think about it, instead of resisting that, since I wanted to fit that in the schedule, I should have just brought one in, because this is now your reality. Once you're in a marriage, it's different. See, this is what comes to mind. It's very easy to say I do, but the challenge comes when you have to follow up and say I will. And that's doing the thing. That's doing it. Getting a ring, going shopping, honeymoon, it's all easy. But with these kids that I don't even know, but they're gravitating towards me. And I could have brought them right in. And that would have been more, I say, organic than me pushing mute, running back and forth, calling my wife to say, hey, I'm busy. Let's bring the kids in. And I'm guaranteed that they would have just said hi and left and probably not even wanted to stay. But when you resist the I will portion, that's what makes every day of the marriage harder when you can make it blend in. Because now that you're in, you have to say I will. So that's, to me, the biggest takeaway. In the last marriage, I wasn't willing. I would not do certain things, and it didn't mean as much, and I didn't value the relationship in my first marriage. So this time I will, and we will, because if only I will, it'll be a very tough situation to have or to stay in, or to be a model of Christ. The reason he put us together. So you got to be willing, no matter what the circumstances are or what's happening right now, still be willing to stay in it and stay committed.
Absolutely. I love that. I will. I get it. I'm saying I will know that I have to make room for the people that are not even here, right? So
So you
Thomas,
see but do you think that people, sorry, real quick, do you think that people really understand that? Even the woman who says I do, the woman who's praying for the husband, she gets that I do, but what are you willing to sacrifice or to move around? Not just you, all of our women and men too. What is he willing to sacrifice and give up? Because it's not about you anymore and what you want. It's about both.
exactly. And that's why I think it's critical to really expand the list of questions and conversations you have in that dating phase, because it's like coming to altar, from that altar, when you could be making those changes and alterations before you even got there. And then you could see how you can balance together. So with that being said, Thomas, you've had extensive experience, not in a 29-year marriage, but also with counseling other couples, namely other married people. What can you share with us about couples managing and resolving conflicts without damaging their relationship?
Wow, I got a hard one. Give it to Jesus. That's the easiest. The rest of the story is being committed to the relationship. And being committed. I always have to, before I even when we start marriage, is that who put you in this relationship? And I ask that separately from each one, because people say crazy stuff when you ask that question, because they're like, well, we were friends, and then, I grew to like her, or, what did you mean? And so
I think we lost him.
This place,
Oh, there.
and I know that God is putting me with this person. And when I've had people say that, and because the commitment is twofold. Commitment is to the person that you're marrying, your spouse, the man marrying the woman, the woman, the man and the woman together. But the other commitment is to God. And then the spiritual relationship that goes with that is because if you're saying that God put you together, the Bible tells us, let no man put asunder. Mm-hmm. And many times the people put themselves asunder. It's not the other person or no man. The man that puts them under are them, because they walked into the relationship with an expectation. Even some that saying, well, God put us together. They don't think there's no work because God put us together. There's a lot of work because family is the institution that God ordained in the beginning. And in that beginning, what does the devil want to do? He wants to destroy that family. So if he can put the unks in there that says that I don't have a commitment, and whatever happens to that, better for worse, to death do you part. If you don't understand what that means as a person that's doing the counseling, if you don't ask the question and challenge them to understand what does that mean, what will break your commitment? Where is the commitment that you're giving to this man? Where's the commitment that you're giving to this woman? And some men says, well, my commitment is, as long as she don't cheat on me, as long as this, as long as that. Okay, where is God in it? What does cheating look like? The woman, well, I want my man to take care of me, da-da-da. What does that look like? The famous one. I want a Boaz. Okay, what does that look like? Because the Boaz in the book of Ruth is not the same Boaz that you're going to find in your book. Because Ruth had her own commitments and her own focus that she needed and she required. You have your own focus that you need and you require. And that's where, that commitment, that understanding what is it your desire. It's like you said, Erica, there are a whole bunch of things that you got going on. You've built your world around you. And you're committed to your world. Jubril said it amazingly, because he was like, I do versus I will. So now you've built your world around yourself. Now, how much of that world are you willing to give to the other? Because sometimes it's going to be all of it. You might have to give it all. Your wife gets sick, she gets pregnant, she gets sick, you got a child all the way, you got a nice BMW in the garage, you got all these toys you want to play with, and all of a sudden you have to get rid of all of it because you got to take care of a family. And now you said, I ain't getting rid of my stuff, I worked hard to get all this stuff. But you take the materialistic part over the spiritual connection, the spiritual commitment that you have made. The wife sitting there saying, hey, I got all this stuff. I made this. I'm the president of this. But your husband is sitting there saying, yes, but these are all the other things that I'm needing. You're getting ready to be pregnant. You're getting ready to do this. I need to make sure that my income is making sure that, everything that we need, I can supply you while you're making our family, while you're growing our family, while you're birthing our family. And they're like, no, I'm going to do both. So that commitment that you have, and it's not something that and it changes every day, every hour, every single minute, sometimes. And it's on both parts. We all got to be committed to the relationship and not to ourselves. And we have to be willing to allow God to be the glue that holds it all together, because we can't hold it together. Because the promise is to God, unless you went to a judge and he said that the promise in between you and I heard this one time. I went to a judge. I didn't like it. I was just going because I was invited, because they didn't want a preacher to do it. They wanted a judge. And the judge said, do you take this man? And he says, under the laws of the state of so-and-so, I command you man or wife. And I'm like, you can't command nobody man or wife. You're a judge. So who are you going to be there when all hell breaks loose? Are you going to be there when they're sitting there and the bills are due, what can you give these two people that's going to give them the assurance that they can make it? Only God can do that. So your commitment has to be to God, to your spouse, and that's to death do you part. And that's why the Bible says, woman, submit yourself to your husband. And it says, husband, cleave to your wives. It's a commitment that we individually make to make the marriage work, not each other, the marriage. Because that's what's important. And we have to take, when we are, I know I'm taking up too much time, but when we are in that, before we start the marriage, we got to look at ourselves and understand what that means to each of us. Okay, I'm done.
Awesome. I'll ask this question for anyone that wants to answer. I believe everyone on the call has either been married before or is currently married. What advice or reflection you'd like to share about balancing personal goals and ambition with empathy and communication with your mate?
You said what? Can you repeat that?
How do you balance personal goals and ambition personally with empathy and communication with your spouse?
It's constant communication, but you got to lead with communication, and you have to leave with flexibility. Again, I knew I had this podcast today. We had a special event that just came up maybe Thursday. So this was a live session. I couldn't miss that. So but you have to just find a way to blend it. So as you can see, I know as Thomas was speaking, two young ones came in that are not my own. But did anyone see the two young ones come in? And just like my hypothesis proved, they just wanted to be apart for 1 second. The point I'm making is, in a marriage, you have to communicate with your spouse and make them feel a part of it. Give them the invitation. Doesn't mean they're going to stick with it, but they just want to see what's going on. And more than likely, they're not going to be around. But if you don't make them feel like they're included on everything, it's impossible for them to be involved in everything, but they want to feel, most of us want to feel like if we wanted to, we could. And I invited everyone to come in. And as you can see, people came in, they're gone. Now I'm not going to hear from them. That's just how it is. See, it can be even as simple as a piece of cake. They are full, said they don't want any more. You get your piece and you don't offer it. So you need to go ahead and offer them the piece and give them that opportunity to say no. And that's what I mean by flexibility and communication. Be as flexible as you want with them up front, and you'll see that it's not as big of a deal, but you have to do that up front. And I mean constantly. That's the difference between being married. I do and I will. So every day you got to do this. You got to feed that relationship daily. And then they'll get tired of it. Because they feel more secure and they feel like they have the power to push something if they want to.
I love it. That was an excellent answer.
So you believe that too, Erica?
Oh, I definitely do. I mean, it's a constant sacrifice. That was the thing about it, even when I reflect on being married, is that it was a consistent sacrifice. And like we learned in our submission podcast, it was consistently, willingly deploying yourself in service to someone else. Whether it's hot or cold, how you feel, what your day's like, your commitment to the service is more important than your personal perspective of the situation.
Okay. And I think in any relationship, you can practice that, because as you prepare for your next go around and being a wonderful wife, the people that you're around, because how you do things is how you're going to do everything. So you need to be prepared, because it's easy to say I do, but when it comes time to switch things around, I will. So even with us, with the podcast, I'll just tell everyone that Erica has been a true partner in this and made me not just feel like a co-host, but sometimes the host. And it's a great, and it's not like she doesn't have things that she has to juggle or do or step in. And in a partnership, it usually never is 50-50. So when they say your better half and all of that, that's just not how life is. It's you could be carrying everything for 3 months, but it's going to turn around and the whole balance is good. But would you rather carry everything for 3 months or carry everything for the rest of your life? And that's the decision that you make. I'll just leave it at that.
I'm going to pull that string a little bit more. And I'm pulling that string because, brother, you
Sure.
said something that's not that you need to do for before you get married. There's something you have to do while you're married. It's something that you have to constantly watch and monitor simply because life changes and life happens. Life occurs inside of a marriage in all times. Just because I've been married for 29 years don't mean it's still not difficult, because it's about the commitment, but it's also about the ability to change and to move as things change. It is not always, and we've said this over and over in these podcasts, it's never 50-50. A lot of times it's 90-10 or 100-0, but in all things it's 100-100, because you might not give but 10% to the effort, but you have to give 100% all time to the marriage. And that's whatever you're doing and however you're doing it, because we have to make sure that we are 100% committed to that, to where we are, and committed to treating our wives and treating our husbands the way that God would have us to treat them. But at the same time, seeing their needs and ensuring that their needs are met, but at the same time, seeking and ensuring that our needs are where our roles are also met. That's hard. And we have to be able to do that. I'll say,
Yeah, I think.
I was reading, I had a good friend of mine that was 35 years, and they lost the marriage because, they lost focus on the marriage and started looking at themselves. Over. I mean, that's it. That's all I got.
Oh, okay. Well, I have a question because I think that we've left everyone else speechless. Thank you, Thomas. But I have two questions. One is the first question I have, and anyone can feel free to answer, is what is the most crucial piece of advice you would give to someone currently struggling in their marriage? The most crucial piece of advice that you would give to someone struggling in marriage. What anybody wants to?
I'll take this one. Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes. How you doing, Derek? How you doing?
How you doing? How you doing? The very key important piece is, I know you already said this, there's got to be communication.
We barely hear you, Derek. We're having a hard time
Hey,
hearing you.
Derek, if you type it in the chat, I can maybe, because I can't translate it. Maybe somebody, if they have clear reception, can do that, and we can get back to Derek and we can say it for him, but I can't understand what he's saying. Could anybody else mention, or even Erica, one crucial piece of advice? You know how to make a marriage work by seeing what doesn't work. So I think that's a great thing, that now the recipe to success. You're willing to do it.
A crucial piece of advice I would give to someone who's currently struggling in their marriage is don't feel like your business is just your business to where you don't let other people in. I get not going to family. Family shouldn't be the first people you call on, especially if the people are not in a position to offer you key advice. Meaning, if that person's marriage is not that great, they're probably not the people you need to lean on to assist you with your marriage. Not that they can't say things of wisdom to you. It's just that if you're not from a judgmental standpoint, so let me bring some balance to what I'm saying. If you know that person is struggling with communication in their marriage and you have a problem in communication in yours, they are not the people that you go ask the question of how do you make communication work. And they're probably, depending upon the situation they're in, going to give you advice that's probably going to cause damage rather than repair to your relationship. It's not that you don't love them, you don't value their opinion. You want success. So you need to go to successful people, i.e. a marriage counselor at your local church. Granted, even with that, you still want that to, you want to first observe what you feel like and have some insight into people who can give you advice that is not from their head, but it's from experience, and they're going to also back it with the word. And if they don't have said relevant experience, then it's not that you can't ask them, it's just know that they're going to be limited in the advice that they give. So one of the things that was very helpful to us when we were married was we were part of a marriage counseling group, small group, and we had monthly rotating meetings from house to house. And unfortunately, that particular leading church had different minister came in who saw it from a different perspective, and took it in a different direction. But for 9 months, we were rotating different meetings, and every couple had their month, whatever that topic was, and that was their struggle. Everyone gave feedback after. So what would happen is the format of that looked like the marriage counselors presented the topic, and then they gave the word to that topic, and then they gave a word to someone who might be experiencing a struggle in that particular area. And then other couples who've been married for a long time or who had that challenge would then be able to get feedback to that couple that kind of helped them sustain. And I would say to you, my personal testimony would be, I know that our marriage grew in that 9-month period of time, because I could have chosen any one of those months to say that we didn't have that struggle, but we might have been having a struggle. But seeing those couples pull together, forge and impart and pour into one another made that much better. So just to kind of give you a little bit of why I know that was one success or a month that we had. And I didn't feel like this would be our month, but it actually happened to be the month that we hosted. And we were talking about marriage and money. And so that'll be kind of like our podcast is going to deal with marriage and money next week, right? So what they were talking about was budgeting and bringing all the money to the table and structuring your life around that. And it was so kind of crazy because my husband at the time, he said, well, Erica has this perspective that we should pay all of our money on bills. And I was like, what? I said, no, I let him speak though, and he got it all out. And basically, he admitted in that situation that he hadn't told me that his pay had changed like 2 times in the past year. I mean, I knew that he had gotten like raises or promotions and stuff, but I never went back to him because honesty is a policy, right? Back to him to say, well, what does your new paycheck look like? No, we did the budget at the beginning of the year. Our bills are this, and we're going to pay this much down on debt every month, and this is our goal, and we're going to be debt free in this period of time. We're going to pay this, allocate, based on these things. And I was sitting there like, I overrode the embarrassment, because at first you're like, did he just put me out there like this? And I didn't even know he had this. So instead of getting mad, right, which would be the natural tendency to be emotional, it was like, okay, let me speak from my side. I said, what Louis doesn't understand, and it's okay to name names because I've said his name before, is that I am pulling this money because it works for the plan. It is not an attempt to not have him go ahead and have access and authority over this extra money he's earning. It is because the sooner we get out of debt, the faster we can pay off our home, which means that all of these other things that we're not doing, investing and all those things, we'll be able to do even more of that. He'll be able to spend way more money, more of his money and all of these things. All he never ever had to do was just, come back to me and ask, so, okay, let's take a look at the plan. And if we tweaked it like this, or what if I just pulled an extra whatever out of it? How would that look like in the long term? So that happened to be our month. And I was thinking that there are more things that we could have had counsel on, and that would not have been the one. But it just goes to show you that, like Jubril said, communicating and continuously communicating. And so my piece of advice to sum it all up would be, never assume you know everything that's going on with your partner or what their thoughts are, even if you've talked about it. Continue to talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. And even though we did that budget at the beginning of the year, maybe we needed to be talking about it every month just to say, here's where we're on track. Now he could go and look up the spreadsheet and have me print it out at any time. And he never asked that. So he never had to be like, oh, so you're making an extra $250 a week. Let me go ahead and get $200 of that. I would have never, I would have never did that. I would have been like, we're going to adjust it for this. When we get 6 months from now or a quarter from now, and we can do this. It was not an attempt to have a grab into his pocket. It was crazy, but continue to communicate, because communication would derail what you got going on. I did see Derek come back in the room. Jubril, did you want to go ahead and re-ask his question so that you could get his feedback?
Sure, for the sake of time, Derek, in a quick minute, because we still didn't answer the second question, ask the second question, but Derek, the question was, what most crucial piece of advice would you give, sum up in maybe a sentence, to someone currently struggling in marriage? Just your biggest takeaway.
Okay.
You're on mute.
He said something.
Hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Yeah, real quick, I was just gonna say you got to go and talk to the third party that's part of your marriage, which is God. You got to keep him in the loop of everything that's going on. Constant communication is always important because we change daily. One of the brothers that was saying something earlier, he touched on it, and I just wanted to expand upon it. That we change daily, and when you don't have that effective communication, you start to lose touch. Just for any relationship, you got to work on it. Marriage is a important thing to show how to, put your hands on the plow. And the moment you lose that communication, things start to go really, really left, real fast. So I would just say, when you realize that, hey, y'all not on the same page, you got, instead of going to other people and allow other people to come inside your covenant, you have to go into the third party, which is God, and he's part of your covenant anyway. That's what I was going to say.
Excellent
Thank you.
answer. Thank you.
And it's all tying together. I mean, and this is the other one, because I'll wrap it up at the end with this, but if you had one piece of wisdom about marriage that you believe everyone should know, what would it be? And it sounds like the takeaway is just having constant communication. If I could say that everyone seems like we're agreeing on that. But I would end with this part of just understanding that there's a difference between being flexible, which is the I will, and settling with the I do. See, when you do the I do, meaning you would accept someone in hand of marriage, but it's not ordained by God. That's the third person, as Derek was referring to, then it's going to head in disaster. I don't care how much you pray, how much you fast, it's not meant to be. You've taken somebody else's husband or wife, you've stolen, you've cheated prematurely on your future spouse or wife and the person you're with. So it's a sin in itself. And you heard God, you heard the third party, and you still did it anyways. So willing to do something that you shouldn't do is going to lead to disaster. And again, it's a difference between being flexible, which takes constant communication in the right marriage institution and marriage. And as you constantly communicate with your spouse and God, you will have success. So that's the biggest takeaway. But again, be careful of the I do, because that's where you are settling. Because some people just say, I just want a husband. I just want a wife. You want yours. Because if not, somebody's going to pick it for you. And you know that by nature, humans are selfish.
Wow, I love that. And it's the truth. I mean, that's that is so true. So
Hey, real quick,
because
just
we
real quick, I'm
focus,
so sorry, it just hit me. Have you noticed that some of us even ask someone else, not God, to find us a husband or wife? Girl, can you hook me up with somebody? So there you have people finding people for you based on their problem, based on their mindset, their view for you. How
right,
could you dare put that in the hands of someone, and they could even be single?
no,
Scary. You've heard of that, right? You say, can
right.
you find somebody? Can you hook me up?
You don't want
Hmm.
them to hook you up. I would say to you that the people that are very caring and they love you and they really know you, they don't hook you up at all. And you'd be like,
They
what?
can guide you, but they're
But
not going
they
to, they
protect
can't
you.
find it. Yeah, but they're not going to
Right,
find it for you.
right.
That's
No.
we
And
ask people.
who wants to be the person that you are the person that hooked them up with this person that has really destroyed their lives? You don't want that. I promise you. I love this you said before, Jubril. I think it brings balance into this particular session. When you define what is cheating, cheating is anything you don't want your spouse to know.
Oh, absolutely. So we can, it's different levels of cheating, and we know the main one is getting caught in the cookie jar, the stuff you really don't want the other person to know. No, I mean on a whole level where you have to pay more of a price to get them to trust you again. But the truth is, it's cheating when your ex got a pay raise or even a pay cut. He doesn't tell you.
Right.
That's cheating because you don't. It's even cheating if you guys have decided not to go on a fast where you're just doing fruits and vegetables, a Daniel fast, and the other person is getting a box of chicken every other day and they're leaving crumbs in the car and you see it. That's cheating. You're cheating the relationship because you're not constantly communicating, and that is not what both of you agreed. And it may sound small and petty, but then when that person has to go to the doctor and has high cholesterol, now you got to take them and pray for them that they get well. It's affecting the relationship. So cheating is not just sexual. It can be financial, spiritual, emotional. It's anything that you don't want that significant other to know about and that you also didn't tell or disclose. And the only time you disclose it is if you get caught. But as they say, what is in the dark comes to light. So you're not even looking for it and it falls. A broken glass in the closet. I'm just saying.
Oh my gosh. So then this is final question from your host here is you're in the marriage. The communication, like I said, is consistent thing. But what is the one best thing that you didn't know that you would have that turned out to be a surprise to you that you're like, I didn't even know that God you hit that for me. But this is one thing that I love about being married, or I love about my spouse that I had no knowledge of prior to, that has had to come in the marriage. What would anyone say that has been?
That's a great way to end the show. I'll let somebody say it first and I end. Maybe.
Anyone can share. What's the best thing that you've discovered about your spouse that you probably didn't consider or know about beforehand that you've discovered while being married that you really appreciate?
Well, I'll take it. I can end it with it before we talk about what we're going to discuss next month. I mean, next week live. Does Thomas want to say something before I end it? It looks like he's itching.
Yeah.
I saw that green come on. Go ahead, Thomas.
So I think the most important thing that I found out in my marriage about myself was the love that I have for my wife and the level of patience that we have grown together over the last 29 years. Because she's your heart. And for me, my wife is my heart. I know when I walk out the door, I leave it there every morning because I want to make sure that it's there when I get back at night. I leave a piece of me with her, and as I walk out the door, she gives me a piece of her to walk out of the door with. She gives me her love. She kisses me and says, I'll see you when you get back. And even though she has sleep half her time, she smiles. That gives me anticipation, and that gives me that love and that patience that whatever happens, that it gives me that assurance, whatever happens during the day, I'm going to come back home to her, and it's going to be okay. We have to have that dependency in each other, and that dependency is amazing because it allows us to, even if we don't have anything to talk about, silence sitting on the phone is just as precious to me than, being talking to a lot of my friends. Silence, just to sit back. She's one of those that she don't like a lot. All she wants me to do is sit in the room, chill with her, watch a movie, and that's all she wants. Me, I'm higher energy. I want to go out, I want to eat, I want to do this stuff. That's my giving back. I'm a doer. And, I had to bend and be patient with the way that she wants to show love, the way that she wants to spend quality time. And it's that communication, like you're saying. It's understanding that in me allows me to mold myself to be a better partner and a better lover for her, both spiritually, mentally, and physically. Okay, I'm done.
Excellent. Final thoughts, our co-host, Dr. Jubril.
Sure, thank you. Now I gotta get something. You said doctor this time for that.
That's
Extra
right.
The question was about what we've learned about our spouse that we really love or we didn't know that was a surprise. I think at the beginning of this segment, you talked about a surprise that wasn't as exciting, correct? So now we're ending with, since we are married, since we are willing, what is something that we would love? I would say that with Takesha, it's that she's willing to still do things. See, I say willing to do things, even when we're having disagreements, even when clearly she's not happy. And that's something I would say I love about her, because somebody at that point has to be willing, if not both, at least one, to keep everything going, to keep the fire going and not throw it out with water or ice. And she's been able to do that, because sometimes I may not always feel like being this way, especially depending on the circumstances or what has happened at that moment. So I can tell that she has the ability to understand and to know, because she still wants the marriage, that this is a boiling point. It's no need to do anything. Let me switch and compromise and be flexible at that moment. And I feel that I feel that she does that without me saying it. She can just sense it. And that's I say I love that about her, because without that, it would be much easier to separate, and it would be more difficult to come back as the more you separate. And see, that's the cheating part. You're separating, you're not communicating, and you don't let the spouse know that you're separating. It's working in your mind. Because everything you're attracting is going to be separation, because that's what's on your mind. And that's what starts to become part of your heart. So 3 years end up, and you say you're out, but you were already, you started being out 3 years ago. Nobody knew. You hid behind holidays, birthdays, parties, cookouts, family reunions, but no one knew that you had already started cheating. So again, be careful. And that's the advice that we both could give you, is keep constant communication and fair expectations, and constant reevaluate and do an inventory on this. Because we spend so much money on school, hundreds of thousands, and going to debt, student loan debts. But how many of us have a loan, a marriage loan, a marriage counseling loan, or debt? How much money have you put into your marriage when we talk about all the other accolades? No one prepares us for this, and we don't spend enough time. A 9-month marriage preparation, or that's not enough. You go to college for 4 years and even more. So what you put in and what you focus on is what you're going to have and what you're going to be to maintain.
Excellent reflection. Well, as a
Thank-
final thought, before we tell you about next week, I've had the privilege and the honor to see a glimpse into everyone that's attending this podcast tonight, a glimpse into their marriage. And one thing that I can say that is similar across the board is you all have shown your spouse's support, and I've also seen your spouses support you. So great job on whatever communication or tactics or things that you guys are doing and working on that makes that visible to the rest of us. It's very encouraging. But join us next week, everyone, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, for our live episode, Marriage Reality Part 2, Money Matters, where we will discuss how finances impact your marriage, from credit scores to budgeting, and you also learn practical tips for financial success and lasting love. So join us next week. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight and sharing your perspectives on marriage reality. The honeymoon is over. Have a great evening, everyone. And thanks
Thank you.
again for your
Thank you so much,
participation.
All right. Thank you. Good night.